My name is Marcus Bell. I'm 42, married, father of two, and until 6 months ago I was the senior operations analyst at a Fortune 500 logistics firm. 10 years of service, 10 years of canceled vacations, sleepless nights, and projects that drained the life out of me. I wasn't flashy, I wasn't political, but I was damn good at my job. Numbers spoke louder than words in my world, and mine always told the truth. They say hard work pays off, that if you put your head down, show up early, stay late, and never complain, someone will eventually notice. They noticed me all right, just not the way I expected. I used to believe in loyalty. I believed that if you treated your job like your second home, your coworkers like family, then you'd be safe, that you'd be rewarded. But the day I was fired, after saving the company millions, was the day I realized just how naive I'd been. At home, we lived modestly. A 2-bedroom in Tararfar, the suburbs, a beat-up Honda, Friday pizza nights with the kids. I didn't need a yacht or a corner office. I just wanted stability, for my wife, for my family. And for a while I thought I had it, until everything unraveled. It started with a pattern I noticed in the quarterly reports. There were inefficiencies, cost leaks buried so deep most people wouldn't catch them. But I did. I spent 2 months analyzing them at night, running simulations, creating solutions. I brought it to my manager, a guy named Brent, who wore $800 loafers and never returned an email without copying half the executive board. He smiled like he was impressed. "Great work, Marcus," he said. "Let me take it from here." And then, silence. Weeks passed. No updates, no questions. I figured maybe it was being processed. Then, during the next all-hands meeting, the CEO stood up and praised Brent for leading an initiative that saved the company $6.2 million in annual operational costs. The entire room clapped. Brent winked at me from across the conference table. That wink. I still see it. I didn't say anything that day. I told myself it didn't matter who got the credit. What mattered was the work, the impact. But something inside me shifted. It felt like I'd been stripped of something I couldn't quite name. Still, I kept going, kept working, kept my head down. Until the following Monday, HR called me in. No explanation, just a white envelope and a speech about organizational restructuring and moving in a different direction. No warnings, no write-ups, just done. As I walked out with a cardboard box in my arms, years of loyalty reduced to a footnote, I didn't feel rage at first. I felt hollow. Like someone had kicked the wind out of me and all I could do was stare at the parking lot, wondering how the hell I became disposable. But the anger came later. Oh, it came hard, and it demanded answers, and justice. The first week after I was let go was a blur. I'd sit at the kitchen table with a mug of cold coffee staring out the window at nothing. My kids tiptoed around me like I was a wounded animal. My wife, Jenna, tried to stay positive, tried to talk about new beginnings, fresh starts, but I could see the worry in her eyes, the way her smile never quite reached the corners of her mouth. I wasn't angry yet. Not really. I was embarrassed, humiliated, fired like I was nothing. And what made it worse was knowing I couldn't even explain it to my kids without sounding like a failure. "I thought you were the boss, Daddy," my youngest said one morning, clutching her stuffed bear. "I thought so too, sweetheart," I whispered, brushing her hair back and swallowing the lump in my throat. But it didn't take long before the fog began to lift. And when it did, something dark and electric began, pulsing through me. I couldn't stop replaying the moment Brent stood in front of that conference room, grinning while the board applauded him for my work. I started to piece together every little thing I had overlooked. His sudden interest in my reports, his casual questions, the way he'd asked me to CC him on everything I'm working on. The pieces didn't just fit, they snapped into place like the lock on a trap door. Then came the texts. "Yo, you good?" one of my old coworkers messaged. "Weird seeing your name scrubbed from that project folder. Brent told everyone you left voluntarily." Voluntarily? That's when the nausea hit me. The sick realization that this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a setup, They'd erased me, rewritten the story. I started digging. It began with my own records, emails, documents, meeting notes. I'd always kept backups. I wasn't a paranoid man, but I was a cautious one, and something in me must have sensed, even back then, that I'd need proof someday. As I sifted through file after file, I noticed things that hadn't registered before. Emails from Brent asking for quick summaries of my findings, always phrased like casual check-ins, but always right before his meetings with upper management. Entire conversations that now read like premeditated theft. Then there was the internal newsletter. I almost missed it. Buried at the bottom of the PDF, in a section titled Team Highlights, was a write-up praising Brent's visionary approach to analytics and his spearheading of the OPEX overhaul. The words were mine. Not just the idea, the language, the phrasing. They'd lifted entire blocks from the summary I'd written in my initial proposal. That's when my hands began to shake. I knew what I was looking at, but I wasn't done. I reached out to Erin, my old teammate from the analytics department. We'd worked closely on that project, though Brent had always kept her at arm's length. I didn't expect her to respond. She had a mortgage, a promotion coming up, and I wasn't exactly someone the company wanted her talking to, but she called me that same night. "Marcus, I don't know if I should be talking to you," she whispered, her voice shaky. "But what they did to you, it wasn't right. Everyone knows it. Brent told the board you were holding the project back, that you couldn't deliver results under pressure." "What?" I choked. "Are you serious?" She hesitated. "He showed them graphs, manipulated ones, I think. Made it look like your numbers were off. Then he turned in your final model with a few tweaks and said it was his." My jaw locked. My whole body felt like it was buzzing. "Erin, do you still have access to the old versions?" I asked. "The ones I uploaded?" She paused. "Maybe. I think IT archives everything for 3 months. But if they find out I shared them..." "I get it," I cut in. "Don't put yourself in danger. Just tell me where to look." That night, I barely slept. I kept staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, replaying Erin's words. This wasn't just about being uncredited. This was deliberate, coordinated. Brent had built a lie on my back, and when he was done, he kicked the ground out from under me and watched me fall. I didn't have all the proof yet, but I had enough to know the betrayal went deeper than I imagined, and I wasn't going to let it go. Not this time. The next morning, I opened my laptop with hands that no longer trembled. They clenched. My humiliation was turning into clarity. The grief was still there, sure, like a dull ache in my ribs, but it had been joined by something else now. Purpose. I wasn't just going to sit around and lick my wounds. I was going to fight. Smart. First, I rechecked everything Erin had hinted. I logged into my old cloud backups, carefully comparing the reports I'd submitted with the ones I found in the final quarterly presentation, the one Brent used to take the victory lap. Line by line, formula by formula, I tracked my fingerprints. The language was unmistakably mine. He hadn't even bothered to change the flow of my executive summary. He just slapped his name on top and submitted it like he'd authored the entire operation. But that wasn't all. I found a Slack conversation, one I'd saved out of habit. In it, Brent had messaged me late one night asking for clarification on a forecasting algorithm I'd developed. I gave him the breakdown. Now, in the final model presented to the board, that exact algorithm was listed as a custom-developed framework by Brent Monroe. That's when I started screen recording everything, every message, every file timestamp. I even recorded myself walking through the documentation, explaining what I built, when, and how he took it. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was documentation. Legal groundwork if it ever came to that, but I knew I needed more than just digital fingerprints. I needed a human angle, a witness. So I reached out to an old friend, Raj. Raj had worked in finance at the company for years and had always kept his head down. He was quiet, methodical, and sharp as hell. We'd built trust over late-night coffees and problem-solving marathons. I met him at a diner off the freeway. away from downtown and far from anyone who might recognize us. "You look like hell," Raj said, sliding into the booth. "Thanks," I muttered. "I feel like it too." I laid it all out for him. Everything. The files, the ghosting, the setup. He listened without interrupting, nodding slowly as he processed every detail. When I finished, he leaned forward, voice low. "I don't think you're crazy, Marcus. Actually, I think you're right. A month before you were let go, Brent started asking for internal budget forecasts tied to your project. He said he needed them to make a strategic decision. I thought it was odd at the time, but I didn't question it. Do you still have access to those communications?" I asked. He hesitated. "Maybe, but if anyone finds out I helped, I won't let that happen," I said. "Just show me the trail." 2 days later, Raj sent me a secure folder. It had internal memos, ones that had been sent to the executive board. In them, Brent had painted a picture of me as an unstable employee, someone who couldn't adapt to fast-paced innovation, and posed a risk to deadline-sensitive deliverables. He'd used my own performance metrics out of context, twisting them to build a case for my removal, and just like that, I had it. The lie was documented. The theft was time-stamped. And the manipulation? It was signed and sealed. For a moment, I just sat there staring at the screen. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just breathed, because I finally had what I needed. I was no longer in the dark. The next step was to figure out how to respond. I wasn't interested in a messy public fight at Gaui. At least not yet. My goal was precision. A quiet surgical strike that would expose the truth and leave no room for denial. So I started reaching out. Quietly. A friend of mine from college, Maya, now worked in employment law. I called her under the pretense of career advice, then slowly pivoted into the scenario. Her tone changed immediately. "If what you're telling me is true," she said, "you're not just looking at wrongful termination. You're looking at intellectual property theft, defamation, and maybe even fraud if those reports were used to secure board approval or bonuses." "Bonuses?" I asked. "Oh, you didn't know?" she said. "If Brent claimed your work as his, and that work led to a financial gain or cost savings, there's a good chance he got a performance bonus, possibly in the six-figure range." 6 figures. He got paid for stabbing me in the back. Something deep inside me clicked into place. This wasn't about pride anymore. This was about accountability. I didn't just want to get even. I wanted them to feel it. I wanted the truth to ring so loudly they couldn't drown it out with PR spin or boardroom smiles. So I planned. I outlined a timeline of events, organized all digital evidence, and built a clear story of deception and theft. Each day, the emotional fog cleared a little more. The sadness didn't disappear, but it stopped controlling me. In its place grew a quiet, burning resolve. I'd played their game once. I'd been loyal. I'd believed in the system. Now I was rewriting the rules. It all came to a head-on, a Wednesday. I'd spent weeks preparing in silence, organizing documents, backing up files, syncing evidence across encrypted drives. I met with Maya in person, handed over the full timeline, and explained everything. She didn't even blink. She just nodded, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Let's give them a war they won't forget." We filed the legal paperwork. That Friday, wrongful termination, intellectual property theft, and defamation. But that was just the beginning. Because I knew the company wouldn't panic over a quiet lawsuit. What they feared, what they despised, was exposure. So I lit the match. I drafted an open letter. Not just a rant, not some half-baked blog post. A precise, fact-backed bombshell detailing the entire scheme. Timestamps, names, numbers, quotes, graphs, emails, Slack logs. Every stolen word of my work, laid bare. I didn't embellish. I didn't have to. The truth was damning enough. I sent it to every business journalist I could find. TechWire, Fast Money, The Wall Street Journal, hell, even a Reddit thread in a corporate accountability forum. The headline was simple. I was fired after saving the company $6.2 million. Here's the truth they buried. Then I turned off my phone. It didn't take long. By noon the next day, my inbox was flooded. Requests for interviews, former co-workers reaching out, anonymous employees thanking me for saying what they couldn't. But the real moment came 3 days later. A call from the company's HR department. "Marcus," the voice said, shaky but professional. "The board would like to meet with you, privately, to discuss recent developments." I didn't say yes right away. I made them wait 2 days. Then I walked into that skyscraper with my spine straight and my eyes sharp. Same building, same elevator, but not the same man. They had me sit at the long conference table, 12 feet of polished wood surrounded by people in tailored suits who once couldn't even remember my name. Brent was already there. He looked like hell, hair out of place, jaw tight, fingers tapping the table in frantic, uneven rhythm. I didn't speak to him. I didn't need to. The CEO started. "Marcus, first let me say, we were deeply disturbed by the allegations in your letter." "Allegations?" I said calmly. "I'd call them evidence." Silence. Brent shifted in his seat. "Look, Marcus, if there were misunderstandings..." "Misunderstandings?" I cut in, meeting his eyes for the first time. "You took my work. You slandered me. You cashed a bonus check based on a lie, and then you orchestrated my firing. You didn't misunderstand anything, Brent. You planned it." He tried to speak, but I held up a hand. "I don't need your apology, and I'm not here for your damage control." The CEO cleared her throat. "We'd like to reach a resolution before this escalates further. We understand this situation has caused reputational harm. Perhaps we can offer a settlement." I leaned forward. "Here's what I want. First, a public statement from the board admitting that the report Brent presented was based entirely on my work. Name it. Own it. Put it on your letterhead." They glanced at each other. "Second," I continued, "I want the internal performance review scrubbed clean. Full retraction of every negative comment made about me. I want my personnel file to reflect my actual contributions. Nothing less. And third," I looked directly at Brent, "I want him gone, not moved, not reassigned, fired." Brent exploded. "You can't be serious. This is insane. He's just bitter." "No," I said, my voice low but steady. "What's insane is that you thought you could gut someone's life, steal their legacy, and walk away untouched." The room went still. "I gave 10 years of my life to this company," I said. "I missed birthdays. I skipped anniversaries. I put your success above my own health, my own family. And this is how you repaid me." I could see the CEO's mask crack, just a hair. "We'll review your conditions." "No," I said. "You'll agree. Or I go public with the recordings, the emails, the messages. I'll sit down with every outlet that emailed me this week, and I'll let the public decide what kind of company you really are." They agreed. Brent was terminated that Friday, publicly, with a carefully worded statement that didn't save him from internal disgrace. The board issued a correction, acknowledging the oversight and crediting me with the initiative that saved the company millions. My employment record was restored with honors. They offered me a settlement, a hefty one. I took it, not because I wanted the money, but because it symbolized something they could no longer take from me. Power. I walked out of that building without looking back. Same city skyline, same smoggy streets, but I breathed differently, lighter, freer. For the first time in months, I didn't feel erased. I felt seen, and they were left shattered. The fallout came faster than I expected. Within days of Brent's firing, the story hit major outlets. The headlines weren't flattering. Executive fired over stolen innovation scandal. Whistleblower exposes Fortune 500 cover-up. The company tried to spin it, called it a regrettable lapse in internal oversight. But the damage was done. They were exposed. And the court of public opinion? It showed no mercy. Brent disappeared from LinkedIn. His professional bio was scrubbed from the company website. I heard whispers through former coworkers. He'd been blacklisted across half the industry. The promotion he stole had turned to ash. And the golden parachute he probably expected, revoked under breach of ethics clauses tied to his employment contract. That, I won't lie, felt satisfying. But justice wasn't just about revenge. It was about restoration. When the company retracted its false claims and publicly credited my work, something shifted inside me. For the first time in months, I stood a little taller. It wasn't about glory or fame, it was about reclaiming my name, my dignity. I didn't need applause, I just needed truth. Still, the victory felt strange. People congratulated me. Friends called me brave. But no one saw the nights I sat on the edge of the bed wondering if I'd made a mistake, wondering if I'd pushed too hard, if I'd burned bridges that would never be rebuilt. Jenna held me during those moments, her quiet presence grounding me when the weight of it all tried to pull me under. But deep down, I knew I had done the right thing. I started consulting shortly after. Companies needed people like me, people who could spot inefficiencies, streamline operations, and call out bad practices before they became scandals. Ironically, losing that job became the doorway to something better. Something mine. Still, when I drove past the old office building a few weeks later, I felt a familiar ache, not bitterness. Just a quiet, solemn mourning. I remembered walking those halls with hope, with loyalty, with the belief that hard work would always be enough. Now, I knew better. I knew that sometimes good people are punished for doing the right thing. And sometimes, bad people wear tailored suits and practice their smiles in boardroom mirrors. But I also knew this. The truth matters. Your voice matters. And when you've been silenced, erased, or betrayed, fighting back isn't about ego. It's about reminding the world that you existed, that you contributed, that you mattered, and when that truth finally sees the light, the shadows have nowhere left to hide. 6 months later, I'm not the same man who walked out of that building with a cardboard box and a broken heart. I wake up before sunrise now. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Mornings feel different when you're not dragging yourself towards someone else's dream. These days, I work for myself. I launched my own operations consultancy. Small, lean, but growing fast. 3 clients turned into 10, and 10 into a waiting list. No politics, no stolen credit, just honest work done right, and the best part? I get to pick my kids up from school. I get to sit across from Jenna at the kitchen table on a Tuesday afternoon and laugh about nothing. I get to breathe, to be present, to choose. Looking back, I realized the job didn't just take my time. It took me. It twisted my identity into something tied to title and approval. And the second I stopped being useful, they dropped me like a faulty part. But that fall, that free fall I thought would break me, it built me. I'm wiser now. I listen more. I trust more carefully, but I haven't let bitterness build walls around me. I've learned that betrayal doesn't define you, your response to it does. One day I got an email from a young analyst. She'd read my open letter and wanted advice. She was sharp, full of ideas, but afraid to speak up in meetings. "How do you deal with people who take credit for your work?" she asked. I told her this. Document everything. Speak with facts, not ego. And never forget, you're not crazy for wanting to be seen. You're not wrong for demanding respect. But, above all, don't shrink yourself to make others comfortable. That's the part I keep with me. I was small for too long. Quiet. Convenient. Never again. Now, I mentor others who've been pushed aside or silenced. I help them find their footing again. Not just with strategy, but with dignity. I don't just want to fix systems. I want to build better ones, where credit goes to those who earn it, and where integrity isn't a liability. And yes, sometimes I still get angry when I think about what they did. Sometimes the memory sneaks up when I least expect it, but it doesn't hurt the way it used to. It reminds me how far I've come, because the truth is, Getting fired didn't ruin me. It revealed me. It forced me to strip away the lies I'd been told. That loyalty guarantees safety, that silence protects you, that humility means letting others step on you. I learned that your worth is not determined by a title, a paycheck, or someone else's perception. It lives in your character, in your courage, in your choice to rise, even when everything inside you wants to hide. So no, I'm not the man I used to be. I'm better, freer, stronger. And if I had to lose everything to become him, then I'm not sorry it happened. People think betrayal is the end of the story. They imagine the credits roll after the heartbreak, after the loss, after the person walks away with everything you thought was sacred. But I've learned that betrayal isn't the end. It's the beginning of a different kind of truth. The truth about who you are when everything safe and familiar has been ripped away. The truth about the people you let close, the signs you ignored, the love you gave freely, and what it cost. But more importantly, the truth about your strength. The kind of strength that doesn't roar or rage, but quietly rebuilds in the dark. I thought I was broken beyond repair. But the truth is, I was being reassembled, stronger, wiser, not colder, but sharper. I didn't lose my ability to love. I just learned to love myself first. To recognize my value even when someone else didn't. To protect what I worked for, not just financially, but emotionally. Because resilience isn't about never falling. It's about standing up, bruised, wiser, and more determined than ever. Not to be hardened by the pain, but refined by it. And justice? It doesn't always come with flashing lights or courtroom verdicts. Sometimes it looks like peace. Like sleeping through the night again. Like laughing without bitterness. Like walking away from the ruins with your head held high, knowing you didn't let the betrayal define you. If you're listening to this, and you've ever felt like a fool for trusting the wrong person, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not weak for loving. You are not stupid for believing. You are human for hoping, and you are powerful for surviving. Sometimes the person who walked away with everything didn't really win, because they'll never know what it means to rebuild with integrity. They'll never understand the quiet kind of victory that comes from healing. I lost my inheritance, my trust, my fiancé, but I found myself. And if I had to choose between wealth built on lies or peace built on truth, I'd make the same choice every time. The next time you look at your scars, don't ask why you got hurt. Ask what they made you become.